Been around for like 12 years.
So you can, you're like really good to have
Hey Imelda, can you hear us? Or Joan? Raise your hand. Good. Can you raise your hand so we can see if we hear you? Oh, I need to go outside. So that needs to be turned up. Cool. Thanks. What does that mean? Wow.
I probably have. I've had it for 12 years, 12 years.
Okay. Did you hit my car in the parking lot?
If only I know this one story. No, I drove to Santa Barbara and back, and only had 3 near misses. I only typed like 3 cars. I changed my own and
yeah, you got to watch out for those. You used to have to watch out just from the others. Now there's all these little fiats and things. Can't be too clean.
And I was driving a bright yellow bus. Like, hey, I'm coming, don't come near me.
Okay, yeah. So now we got to do screen share. Start sharing. Share desktop. Now sharing desktop.
Where's my cartoon friend?
I'm sure she'll be here. Or
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
confusion.
I didn't have phones back in there from the first time. You get super for a bit, because I only got 32 then. They want me to verify my email, and I don't remember, I can't get back into my school email.
So all we have to do is 6 out of 8 assignments.
That's it. No, that's included. I think it is, yeah. Let's see, let's go to the class and see what, let's ask the teacher. So projects, 8, we're at 6, so it is, there is no final project. So that final project is included in here. So today we're doing project 7, and which is jQuery mobile. And then there'll be one more final project. I don't know. I think you guys have to come up with that. We'll see. Yeah. You have to tell me what your final project's going to be.
Oh, that's what I should
All right, we're almost at the time when we got to start. There's nobody out there. Well, no, there's two people out there.
So how do you know when you actually turn in their project?
When I look and, so I haven't graded, we haven't graded 5 or 6 yet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through this week. Now that 6 is due, and do those 2. And if it's not there, I'll catch it in the next round. You know what I mean? But I'll look to see if you got a grade, and I'll look at your page, and if you've got a,
So, I mean, it's there, but I can still, like, pull it up and play with it.
Yeah, so if I grade it and you come up with some genius thing after that, you can send me a note and say, I read something. You could. I mean, that's part of learning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the best, so I'm fine with that.
Can I just type it out?
Yeah, so then you have to let me know, or I won't know how to regrade those. Yep, that's what software is. Okay, so let's see. Everybody got their phones today? Their smartphones?
Does that interfere with the recording?
No, well, not.
Not today.
Yeah, it's okay to have your smartphones. Don't like make calls or get calls. We're just going to use them. We're just going to. You can use them. Yeah, you can look at it. Yeah, you can look at this any way you want. Right now, we could look at this page in a browser like this, but it's more. This is what we're going to do today is make a commercial. No business is more lucrative than the commercial business, than the advertising business. Right? So what you're going to learn today is like total marketing. The guy who wrote Coke is It. He's not a billionaire, but he made a lot of money for one shower thought, Coke is it. 3 little words. Okay, so is people are joining? A lot of people here. I'm not sure what this is. Does that mean make it louder? Does that mean they're just listening on audio? Why do you have that little thing, Jen? Melda, what does that mean? I can't hear you. Okay. So let's turn it up. Okay, Melda, can you hear me now? Still can't hear me? Huh. All right. Let's go to everybody in the room can hear me. I don't know why you guys at home can't hear me. Joan said she could hear me. People are writing comments. Audio. Yes, maybe Amela, she's on mute. Maybe I muted her? I don't think so.
Oh, no, mine is my first one.
Okay, everyone can hear. How about C? You guys can see the screen at home? Okay, I am going to start me recording. No, I guess we already did start the recording. Just to make sure. Cancel that. Okay, so we're recording. So today is November 27th. And here we are on our little schedule. So we are 2 weeks away from the end of the semester. We have 3 more meetings after today. Today we'll be working on a jQuery mobile project, which I think you'll find interesting and fun and educational and maybe even lucrative. This is up-to-the-minute techniques on building a mobile site using jQuery mobile with some value-added JavaScript and stuff like that. So it should be interesting. So and then we probably will continue this project next week and have another week. We'll have one more quiz. I don't think that'll happen until next week, and then we'll have a final project. So there won't be a final project in Project 8. This jQuery mobile project will be Project 7, and then we'll create a Project 8, which might be a self-directed project. So you might want to start thinking of, if I could make my own project up, what would it be? And maybe thinking about that, and if you've already thought about it, or as you think of it, you could send me a note just to give me an idea of what you're going to be working on and how I can help. That project could be something new, or it could be, I want to go back and redo that form, or that map project that we did, or whatever. So it could be an existing project that you expand in addition to what we've already done. Okay? So, let's see what's going on. Any questions at home? My settings were configured wrong. Okay, so what's going on in class? So quiz 4 has been closed for a long time. Well, not that long, but 6 days. So we'll go over that, and then we'll take it off of this page. Project 6 was due last night, I think. So, but I'll leave that up there just in case anyone's finalizing that. We have not graded yet 5 or 6. So we're a little bit behind as a big class, but we'll get to it by the end of this week. Okay? Got a lot of questions about that. So we will get to that. So this is all stuff from last week, and this is what we're going to be working on this week. Is the actually it should say jQuery mobile project, but this is what we're working on. This is a link to the project page. You could also get there from projects, Project 7, jQuery mobile. Doesn't work. Okay. It goes to Mary's. It should go to Mary's.
It should go to mobile.
It should go to mobile. Right. Okay. Thank you. So that link doesn't work right now, but the home page I think should work. Let's see. Yep, that one works. Okay, so this is the page that we're going to be stepping through today. Project/mobile/index. Okay? And we've got several steps. What we're going to be doing is building a website that works only on mobile devices. Right? Remember we talked last week. There is responsive sites where we use typically a grid type of structure, whether we build that ourselves or use a library like the scaffolding that's built into Bootstrap, which we used last week, to do a responsive site that, like this site, like our website, our class website that responds to the screen size. In addition to that, today we're going to take a different approach. We're going to build a website that's designed only for mobile devices. And will probably be redirected from the home page only for those visitors that are on mobile devices. We'll talk a little bit about how that can be done. Okay? So I'll leave this page, we've got to make this wider so we don't lose our menu. I'll leave this page open for a minute, and before we get started with the project, let's just do a quick review of quiz 4. Okay. Will this be Project 7, did you say? Yes, it will. Okay. So, question number 1. True or false? JavaScript's JSON object has one method which returns a JavaScript object, which turns a JavaScript object into a string, and another method which turns a string into a JavaScript object. I'm sorry?
Should it not say JSON? I don't know. It's confusing.
Yeah, so a couple of people said true, and one person said it might be a little confusing because it turns the object not into any string, but a string that's structured as JSON. Right. So, but I don't think there should be ambivalence into here because.
No, I got what you were going for. I just thought that it was a little.
Right. So the answer is correct, but to be more explicit, if this was Jeopardy, I'm not sure that Alex would make me this explicit. But to be as explicit as possible, which is what we want to be as programmers typically, the correct answer would be what we turn is a JavaScript object into a specific type of string, a string that's structured as a JSON literal, essentially, which is slightly different than a JavaScript literal. Okay?
It was true.
But if you answered true, it was true. The JavaScript technique of sending an asynchronous HTTP request is commonly referred to by which of these terms? Exactly. So, this term is sort of related to AJAX because in many ways the data could be returned in that structure, but we know that jQuery, while it includes AJAX, is something somewhat different. It's a code library, as is Bootstrap, although slightly different from jQuery, performs some of the same functions. regex, what is that? It's a technology. It's shorthand for a technology called regular expressions. It's also a JavaScript object built into core JavaScript, but it is not for making an HTTP request. It's for doing typically string pattern filtering and recognition. Right? So AJAX, which is asynchronous, and JavaScript, and XML, as we said, is kind of an anachronism, I guess is the best way to put it. Not that it's out of date, maybe anachronism is the wrong word, but AJAX has become bigger than just XML, I guess is the better way to put it. So the correct answer was AJAX. What JavaScript statement can be used in an event to override the inherent behavior of the event? So, yeah, a lot of people put override. Return false is the correct answer. So, because what it does is stop the execution not only of that function, but of all the propagation of events that would happen as a result of that event. Right? And if we go to, let's see, where would you find that? I know it was in our, yeah, I know all of these were in, all of these questions came, so in the last quiz, quiz 3, many of the questions were not explicitly taught in class, but were available in resources that I shared in class. And that encouraged a lot of you to kind of be resourceful, or some of you to say, I'm going to try the best I can and see what I get. In this quiz, everything was taken from things we did explicitly in class. So, but yet, everything we do in class should be documented somewhere, you would think. So, here are some solution type of pages. Let's go to the, yeah, I'm not sure this is the definitive page for return. This is for, well,
yeah, what I didn't find is
what do you
it
say?
says specifically that this is the way to override.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm surprised they don't have a returns false statement in JavaScript. Do you see it? Well, this demonstrates it, but what I'm trying to find is the definition of it, I guess. Yeah, so this is a good example of it. And we could see where we use it. Where did we, so extra credit, where did we use return false? Was it in, I think it was in the calculator. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's why it's extra credit. I don't remember either. Maybe somebody home here. Says it in the paragraph above it. The function returns false. And, yeah, so in this case, it's the submit that's being overridden. Right? Thank you, Cal. So, back to our test. Question 4. Yeah, so let's look for JavaScript override. Just keep mark.
I'm thinking more in the sense of like a visual basically do override.
Yeah, but I don't think override is part of the JavaScript language, I guess is what I'm saying.
Different from that.
Yeah, some languages might use the keyword override.
Well, yeah, all they do is they extend or make the function different, you know, more parameters or something like that.
Right. They use inheritance to take what exists and extend it. Right. An override is a generic object-oriented term for taking a method and changing its behavior from a child object, taking a method that's inherited from a parent object and modifying its behavior for a child object that inherits that behavior. And JavaScript doesn't have inheritance. And in this case, override has a slightly different definition. We're not overriding a method, we're overriding an event. Typically an event built into the browser, like submit. And we're stopping the event from continuing its native behavior. So override is a term that can be used in many ways. That's what we meant in that term. Did I hear somebody? Is event default a preferred method? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if it's preferred. Let me take that out offline, or maybe if Noah's online, he might. Thank you, Noah. Earning is pay, right? We're all earning our pay here. We talked for 3 hours. So, question 4. Google's web-based data visualization charts, we used these last 2 weeks ago and last week, was it? Or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Can use which object to contain the data for the chart visualization? So this is the object that contains the data as part of Google's API. And the correct answer is data table. Right. In our example, we might have used a variable named data to represent the data table object, but there is no object called data that we used in our example, right? And this is the specific term that applies to that object in terms of Google's API. Okay, this is a fun one. A couple of people actually got this one. Which method is not a member of the JavaScript array object? Pull, right. So, yeah, push adds an element to the array at the end of an array. Pull does what? Pull does nothing. Pop does what? I think it removes the last element from the array. Right? Slice takes a part of an array and assigns it to another array. And splice takes up 2 arrays and makes one out of them, I believe. Right? But there is no pull, and that is the correct answer. Okay, question?
No, that's it.
Does it have to do with this class?
Yes.
All right. Is now a good time to ask it? Yeah, so
I went over the lecture today, and it always gets to a point where the whole thing gets died because of internet.
the lecture doesn't work? You can't hear it?
No, it worked fine, but every once in a while it just dies, or just restart and stuff like that. But I couldn't get to the very last part where you put the image on the floor. And I'm just wondering if you could explain that way.
Well, there is an example that you could, I mean, the example is there.
I actually went to the example and tried to put the code in there.
Right. All right, well, if we have time today, I could go back and look at it. Yeah. Okay, any questions? Thank you again, Noah. So, a mobile website. What's the advantage of a mobile website? It's mobile. What does that mean?
Someone that's on the go, they've got the phone in their hand, is walking around, perhaps in an easy to see, it's feeling for the person who's holding a small truck.
Yeah, so very good. So I guess the first definition is One, it's a website that's designed specifically for mobile devices, right? And then there are probably subsets or sub definitions in that. So what is it that defines what is it that makes a website better designed for a mobile device? Right? One is what? Bigger and smaller and tighter. Right? The exact opposite. Right? A mobile device means that the screen is probably going to be smaller than a laptop computer. So the first thing is the screen size is going to be different, and therefore your layouts are going to take on a totally different approach. That's one. Two, somebody said it, tighter or bigger. That's wrong. Smaller is better when it comes to code. Does that make sense? Or any resources that you're loading onto your page. Somebody could want to get to this page on a bus, or on a bus in a tunnel, or on a cruise, in the Canary Islands, which probably has pretty good Wi-Fi, actually, but probably better than here at the JC. But the point is, one, it's got to be bandwidth is important, or bandwidth is limited, so file download time is important. And file size is important. Image size is important. It's worth it to resize your images than to take images default right off of your website. Even if you scale them, and even if it's a 20 or 30% scale, you're downloading pixels that aren't needed, right? So it's smaller. It's easier to see on a screen. What else is it about mobile devices that differentiate it from most laptops or most desktop devices? Limited power, yeah. So how that affects things, actually maybe not. My phone lasts longer than my laptop, but you're right, it's probably not plugged in as much. So power might be an issue, but it's probably more for applications than for web pages. Excuse me for a second, I have to play librarian for a second. Okay, sorry about that. Joan, very good. So, Mark, exactly. Most of these devices have something that laptops don't have, which is the ability to recognize something interacting with the screen directly. And that could be a tap, that could be a swipe, that could be different events than you would get in a typical computer configuration, like driven mainly by mouse clicks. Or these days not even as much mouse clicks, but touchpad clicks, which are exactly the same, at least when it comes to JavaScript. So, right, you have more interactions. So how would those probably materialize in JavaScript? Events, exactly. So we have mouse events, and now we're going to have swipe events, right? And we want we probably want to support both, right? You want somebody to be able to click on something you want a tap to be represented as a click, and then you also sometimes might want a tap to be a tap, right? So mobile devices, what else is it about a mobile device that we would take into account in building a website specifically for that environment? Screen size was the first thing we mentioned. Very good. Okay, so those two are very good. So keyboard is one thing. We don't have a default keyboard. We have to present the keyboard, right? We have to have a way to show the virtual keyboard. But I think one of the bigger advantages, and one thing that we're going to learn tonight, is the fact that these mobile devices have built-in geolocation capabilities. and that you could actually see where the user is and respond to that. Not only them swiping, not only them tapping, but them giving you the ability to find out where they are. So that's 5 or 6 things. We didn't actually list them up, but key compelling things that we need to take into account today as we do this project. How are we going to take full advantage of all the capabilities on a mobile device? Now what we're building is an HTML5 website, right? Different than a mobile application. It's not compiled for a specific platform. It's not compiled at all. It's a website like any other website. It's going to be built with the technologies that you're already familiar with, plus some new ones, right? So let's see, what do we want to do? Before we get started, let's take a look at the finished project, okay? Because sometimes it doesn't make sense to start doing something unless you see what the finish is, right? So what we're going to do is build a website for Mary's Pizza Shack. If you go to their website, it is totally not designed for mobile devices. We're looking at it in a browser, but it looks exactly the same on a mobile phone. If some of you have your smartphones open or your iPads, you can open it up. There's Flash on the site. There is, even on this screen, you can't see the full page. So not only is it not responsive, it's designed for wider screens than we have here at the JC, or at least I have, right? So, and if you go to a mobile device and look at this, it looks exactly the same. So this text in these menus, and obviously all this footer menu will be totally impossible to read unless you pinch in and zoom in on it, right? So, which is totally unacceptable for this business. Why is that?
Somebody's going to be driving in their car and go, I want pizza, and they're going to look at this thing and I can marry her, I can't read.
Exactly. A small local business with locations, and like a restaurant, is probably the perfect small business to target a mobile website on, because it's a great way for them to attract customers that could find them on the internet but convert them effectively when they're on a mobile device. And people use their mobile devices to search for things like restaurants, whether they're driving, whether they're walking down the street, or whatever. So, there's many businesses that this could help. This type of solution can help. But I would say a business like this was one that I thought would be a perfect fit, and they don't have it. So, your project 7. You could send a note to Mary's and say, do you want to buy this site? And then I have built it for you. Now, we're going to build it without getting permission for all their logos and all that. And you could, you don't have to use Mary's in your example. And I'm just going to use it. I'm going to take a little liberty with their brand. No, I'm not, but I will make a public service announcement that Mary's makes some pretty good pizza. I'm from New York. Doesn't make fantastic pizza. It makes pretty good pizza. Yeah, and they make some good pasta dishes. So, and it's a great business. So, thank you, Mary, for letting us use your website. And so, what makes it perfect? Well, they've got a bunch of locations. They've got simple content. Just a menu. It's not about differentiating product. It's really, what do we have and how do you find us? And one of the advantages they have is they have so many locations that there's probably one near you, at least in this area. So, now I'm getting paid. I should have set that up with her before we started this class. So, anyway, like I said, you could follow along with this project using any example. You could take your own business and create a mini website as we go along. I'm just going to use this because it's convenient. Everybody sort of knows of it. Everyone identifies a pizza, right? So, so let's get started. So, building a website. What are we going to learn today? A lot of the tools to create a jQuery mobile site are actually online. A lot of our HTML we're going to create just by interacting with a web page, and we'll get to that in a minute. So it's going to be incredibly enlightening to you how simple it is to do this, I believe, and how strong the tools are becoming to make it even simpler. Okay, and that includes both creating the HTML, getting the appropriate JavaScript, and creating your own custom CSS theme. Okay, so we'll learn how to program geolocation and geocoding. So does anyone know what geolocation is? Yeah, the latitude and longitude. Geolocation is an API built into the browser that is a where are you. It tells the website. It allows the DOM to capture the location of the visitor as best as it can be determined when that function is called. Right? There's a built-in function into Navigator. We'll look at that in a minute. So geolocation is where is the visitor, right? Anyone know what geocoding is? Correct. The result of a geolocation is a latitude and a longitude, right? And geocoding is a service that whereby you can provide a physical address and it returns a latitude and a longitude, right? And then there's reverse geocoding. Give somebody a latitude and a longitude and get back a postal address and other information. So the results from a geocode or a reverse geocode we'll get more into, but that's the basic concept. Taking what we know about a place and converting it into what a map knows about a place. So we can use the geometry of a map. Because one of the things we're going to do is do some geometry today. We're going to look at 2 points and figure out their distance, right? Using geometry and global latitude and longitude geography, right? So, and we'll learn some mobile user interaction. So we'll learn how to do the swipes and the taps and things like that, which just makes the mobile site look more mobile, look like it was designed for that platform, right? So I can't demonstrate that obviously here. I can't swipe this, right? But we can navigate around the site, right? So this site has buttons. We can look at the menu, right? We have an accordion, right? I didn't fill all this out, but Mary's now can fill out her whole menu in there. But remember when we built this last week for a non-mobile site using Bootstrap? We used that accordion feature. It was called Collapse, right? Here it's called, I think, Collapsible or something like that. We'll see how we got this. But it's very simple, very similar functionality.
Okay, the way you're simulating this is you just shrank down a regular browser.
I'm just looking at this in a Firefox regular browser, and I just shrank it down to about the width. And how do I know that this is the width of a cell phone? Because I think I sized that image at 288, which I think is about the basic screen size for a traditional iPhone. Right, this is what it looks like on my screen. Now I think it was 288. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll look at it when we create this. But yeah, we're just looking at this. Obviously, this is not a mobile device. This is a, this is a browser.
I thought there were some.
I can't do this. There are simulators where you can do the swipe. I'm not, for simplicity purposes, we're just looking at it in my basic Firefox browser. You could look at this in Chrome as well. I couldn't get the geolocation to work in my Chrome install here. I think it's turned off by the college, but I managed to get it to work in Firefox, so that's why I'm using it. You should be able to do it in Chrome on your own computer. So let's just reload this page. So I could go to the menu, which is sort of our page 2. I could go back home, and I could go to our locations page, which lists all of their offices and draws them on a map. And as you could see, here's geolocation at work, right? So you can't, the browser can't do a geolocation call without getting permission from the user. For each call, I think it is. At least that's the setting in most browsers and on devices. So every time you go to this page, it's going to ask you, are you sure you want this page to know what your location is? Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, it's part of the API. It's part of the browser's behavior to ensure privacy. You don't want the browser to be able to broadcast where you are all the time for obvious reasons. But once we do share our location, we go out and we run some AJAX. I don't know if you saw that, and we didn't really have an AJAX indicator, but it went out to the Google API. It took our address, it did a geocode and got a coordinate, and then it did a geometric calculation to determine the distance in miles between the coordinate where you are and the coordinate for each of these restaurant locations. I didn't put in this website all of Mary's locations because we're not going to Cloverdale in this class or whatever. So I simplified it to some degree, but it would be very simple as you see to expand it. Right? So does that make sense? You want to see that behavior again? Watch this. The page loads, and all we have are the addresses on each of these buttons. Once I share my location, it's got to go to the Google Maps API and turn my location into a longitude and a latitude and do some calculations, and it iterates through that. And now I get a distance for every location, which is a pretty cool feature for a place like Mary's.
How can the business do that on an iPad?
It does. You might need to turn your geolocation settings on by default so that the browser asks you. You might have it turned off in your privacy settings. But the question was, why would it not work on a mobile device? You might need to go to your settings and turn geolocation on. And I don't know. We'll get into that. So yeah, this is a static map. This is actually an image. But we'll get into it. Okay, so that's kind of the functionality of how this works. We don't need to get into detail about it. I'll show you how this is built to answer your question now, but I'm just showing you now why, how it looks as the end result. Right? Any questions about that? No? Okay, so let's get started. So there are a number of ways to work with jQuery mobile. What I'm going to do is try to show you the simplest way to get started. Does that make sense? So we're gonna go to their main site, and all you have to do is click right here to resources. The beauty of this tutorial already is that, look at that, we only have one resource, right? So we're going to be able to get a lot done just with the resources available on this jQuery mobile page, right? And one way you could work with the jQuery mobile library is just to download the entire library. And when you do that, you get some example applications. You get the 2 or 3 JavaScript, and I think there's 3 CSS and at least 1 JavaScript file that comes with it, and they all come in both minified and structured choices. And that comes down as a zip file, and you go through the demos and the examples and the documentation, which is right here, is useful, and that's one way to get started with this. There's a lot to jQuery mobile, right? So this class is about JavaScript. About half of it is about jQuery. Tonight, maybe next week, we'll include some jQuery mobile. But if you go down to the bottom of this page, there's already over 10 books available just about this one tool, right? So obviously, we're not going to cover it all. There's a lot more we can learn about this. This is really more of an introduction. And what's cool is I think you're going to see we could get pretty far with just a couple of hours and a quick introduction by a novice like me. Okay? I'm sorry? I have not read any of his books. I built this whole site today without having read any of those books. I just sort of figured it out. So
The middle top is the newest one.
Justin likes this one. Well, I don't know, it's the newest.
The most recently published one that has the newest information. Just came out not that long ago.
Using history. Yeah, the thing about these books is, as you can imagine, stale might not be the right word or anachronistic, but things change relatively quickly. And for those people who like to learn by books, there's a lot of books, but I wouldn't say that any of them are really necessary. Like I said, it depends on how deeply you want to explore and what these books offer. So I'm not that familiar with them, but as Justin said, this is the most recent. And the author has a great name. So. Okay. So we go back to our site and we look at this. So like I said, this software revs relatively quickly. That's a great thing in the sense that if you keep up with it, there's a pretty good chance that the innovation that happens through the jQuery mobile team will be inherited by your site pretty quickly. But keeping up with it is a responsibility also. So what do I mean by that? Building a mobile site is one thing, but a year from now you're going to want to make sure you update it so it takes advantage of the latest functionality. Because not only is jQuery mobile changing, but mobile devices are changing, right? So bunch of advertising here. This is where you get the libraries. This is where you get the back versions of the libraries if you want to download them. If you have an old device, you can donate it to these guys so they can test their software with it. As iOS. Okay, so this is a tool we're gonna use today, and this is essentially right in the browser, a built-in HTML widget editor, specifically for jQuery mobile. Right? So we're going to go through this in a minute. And then this is another, let's open it in a new tab because we're going to be using that. We can get rid of this. The theme roller is another tool we're going to be using to create the CSS for this website. Okay? And so we're going to be using this, we're going to be using that, and we're going to be using a few other tools to accelerate our development process. All right, so right now we're just sort of getting familiar with what's available on this page. Right? And some of the other pages we'll be using, of course, are the docs, and we just looked at the themes. Right? So let's look at where we are. So my suggestion to get started with this is to go to this page. So click on Docs, click on where it says Components, Pages and Dialogues, and then go to the multi-page template, right? Which is right here. And this is essentially the template. We essentially want to copy the source code of this page and use that as the start of our project. Does that make sense? We want to take the source code of this page and make it our index.html of our project folder. Okay? So I'm going to do that now. I am going to view the page source, and I'm going to copy it. I'm going to select all of it, and I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to go to Dreamweaver and create a new page. New HTML5 page. Right? And create it. We're going to use the multi-page template. So now that I've done that, I'm going to go back and show you what I did. Right? So from the jQuery mobile homepage, it's Docs, it's Pages and Dialogues, and it's multi-page template. So this multi-page template uses a different technique than you're probably used to using when you build websites. In this case, we're going to have one file for all of our pages, and the content for each one of those pages that we navigated through, the 3, home, menu, and locations, are going to be what we call virtual pages. They're going to be regions of the same index.html file, and we're going to let jQuery Mobile use its built-in AJAX capabilities to help us navigate through those. Right? It's all in one document. 3 pages are in one document. That's why we call this the multi-page template. This makes your document more efficient, and it actually is a sort of an interesting way to build a website. Right? So, again, once you get to this page, get the code. Right? You know how to do that. Just view page source and select all and copy it. Right? And then go to your editor and paste it and save it in a document called index.html. And I am going to save it in a new folder. Let's see. I'll call it Mary's in class. Okay? So I'll make sure to upload it to that location if we do anything in this project that we didn't do in the existing project, right? So I created that folder and I saved my index file. Okay? So let's take a look at this file. The first thing we notice is that we don't want the title to be multi-page template. We want it to be Mary's Pizza Shack or whatever it is you want to name your project. Right? The second thing we notice is in these 3 statements, we're actually getting all of our jQuery mobile resources through the CDN, right, through the Content Delivery Network. In other words, we don't need to download anything for us to get everything we need to make this a jQuery mobile site. It's just built into the code we just got off of that template page. And it's the latest version, and it's as simple as that. Okay? So that you could, like I said before, download the library and host it yourself. But this is not only quicker to develop on, it's going to make your website faster because other mobile sites that use jQuery are probably using this technique if they're using version 1.8.2. Right? So it does not. So to answer your question, first let me repeat your question. So does that mean that we can only run this page through a server, through our server, so it can get these links? No, it can get them directly from our browser. So if I open this, let's say in Firefox, and it thinks I have a test server, so yeah. You can see my multi-page is already there, and we've already got a mobile site. Right? Somewhere there's a page 3. I'm not sure how to. I don't know this page, so there is a page 3 there. Ah, here. So there's a page 3 that's a pop-up with the same content, I believe. So all you need to know at this point is that 1, you download the multi-page template. It includes all the libraries you need. You can run it either through a server or directly from your desktop browser, and it should work. There should be nothing in this project that requires a server. Everything we're doing is in JavaScript. Okay? And once you download this, you pretty much have the template. What we're going to do now is create our own site based on this template. Okay? So within the template, the only change you need to make at this point is the title. Right? And then we're going to create our 3 pages in the page editor. Okay? So let's go back to our project. We don't need this anymore. In fact, we don't need that anymore. We could go back to our main page, which is where our page editor is going to be, right? And then let's look back here. So we've downloaded the multi-page template. We've saved it as an index. We changed the page title. We've noticed that it includes all the links to the core mobile and jQuery core libraries, right? So we've already got a mobile site. We just have a generic mobile site at this point. Okay, now we're going to move into designing pages with Codica, or Codica, or whatever that is. And this is Codica. And you can get to that right on the jQueryMobile.com homepage, right? It's about one scroll down, one finger scroll down, right? So, unfortunately, this designer, I couldn't figure out a way to do a multi-page design, so we're going to design each page one at a time, which is fine, and then integrate it into our multi-page template. Does that make sense? So let's go back and look at our instructions, so that if, as somebody said, if you're at home late at night and get lost, you know that the instructions show us what we need to do. So we're going to use that drag and drop widget designer to create a mobile app. I call it a mobile app at this point because it's more than just a web page. It's really designed to be usable on a mobile device. When we download it, it will include, so what we're going to do is design a page and then download it. And when you download it, you get the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We don't really care about the CSS and JavaScript because we already got it linked in on our HTML template, the multi-page template. So all we're really going to get is what we designed, the HTML structure that page is going to help us design, right? And we'll go through that. I'm just kind of painting the picture before we do it, okay? We're going to create 3 pages using that designer, and we're just going to paste the code right into the index file that we created, like I just said. And this is the steps we're going to do. So let's read them, and then we'll just go through it. On the home page, we want to add that banner image, Mary's Pizza Shack, right? We want to add another image. So just to make it interesting, if we go to this site here, and we go to the home page, I just added that happy hour. Figure what better way to get somebody looking at their smartphone into Mary's and tell them that when the happy hour is, right? So we're going to add a footer. We're going to add 2 buttons to navigate to the other page. So we can actually go through this and see as we speak, right? You can see the footer, you can see the banner, you can see the image. We also put a header, headline text in, right, which is their sort of whatever, what do you call that, tagline, right? And then we put these buttons. On the menu page, we add a header instead of a banner. We add what we call a nav bar, so you can navigate from page to page. We didn't add a footer to this one, but we could. And we add a collapsible accordion widget, right? And then on the navigation page, we're going to add this header. We're going to add the nav bar again, but the nav bar will be different, right? Because the pages obviously are navigable differently, right? We're going to add a map. We'll go through how to do that, and we're going to add buttons. A button for each location, right? These are jQuery mobile buttons, and these buttons are links that allow you to, what do you think that means? Why wouldn't it link? Let's see. Where does the link take us? So if you look at the bottom left, I can't point to it. Well, maybe I could if I go to Brooks. So if you look below my hand there, you can see that the link is not using the HTTP protocol, it's using the TEL protocol. And while it doesn't really know what to do in a Firefox browser, on a mobile phone, it will call Mary's number, right? And each of these locations has a different phone number, right? Because each of them has a different phone number, right? So our job is to present to the user a way for them to find the quickest location and call them as easy as possible on their phone, right? Another thing you could do, in addition to the HTTP protocol, in addition to the TEL protocol, you can also use the SMS protocol. And that will send a text message to that phone. Obviously, it has to be a smartphone or a phone that has SMS protocol built into it on the other side. In fact, it doesn't need to be a smartphone. It could be a, one of those old flip phones or whatever, because they have SMS built in. And we don't want to do that with Mary's because these are probably landline phones that they have. But restaurants, I work with a couple of clients that are restaurants that use the SMS protocol to take text message orders for lunch and then have them ready. And a person walking to their place on a mobile device can actually place their order by doing a text message. Right? And one of the things you might want to do in this project is to offer both, call or text. Or call, text, and get directions would be another great feature for this. But I'll leave that to you. So, you got a question?
Yeah.
So, how does that look? What's your question? We'll see that when we get to it. So this is what we're going to, again, result in, and we'll get into how we do each of these. Well, you don't have a phone on that. You have a tablet which doesn't have a 3G or any kind of SMS network.
He has this in there, so you can type.
Yeah, but it doesn't, it's not a phone.
I don't think it's going to be able to SMS. Try it on your smartphone. Order a large garlic while you have them on the phone. Okay, so let's go back to our formula here. So I've kind of laid this out what we're going to do. Now let's go out and do it in Codiqa. Okay. So let's open up this page again. And building with Codiqa is as simple as drag and drop. So the first thing we want to do is add an image, right? So if you're in all up here, first of all, you want to be in build mode, right? Which is the default. And if you're in all, you'll get all the widgets displayed. If you click any of these other buttons, you'll get the subset that falls into that category, right? The first thing we're going to do is add Mary's logo, right? So we're going to add an image. And it's a matter of, did you see that? Just dragging and dropping. If you don't pay attention, you're not going to get this because it's too quick, man.
3 hours later.
Want me to do that again? Let's add an image. This is how the page looks. Let's scroll over here to image and drop it where I want it. Okay? Want to try that again? It won't drop for you, huh? Okay. It's not a bad practice to put a specific link here, a fully qualified link. And I think we could probably get to you could all share my my image, which I think is at santarosa.edu/ You could go out and steer your own if you want, but you have to upload it so it could be visible in here. You can always add it to the code later, but this is just a simple way of doing it. What are we doing here? It's like Dreamweaver. We're using drag and drop design mode, which ultimately will give us code that we're going to download and use. In fact, we don't even have to download it, as I'll show you in a second. So we want to go to examples, Mary's. I think it's images / Mary's .jpg, and you should get that beautiful image right there, right? And we can link that to the home page, right? Even though that is only going to be on the home page, so we probably shouldn't link it to anything, right? That would just be a waste. People will click it and they may burn up bandwidth for no reason. They just do a page reload. So we got our image. we said we would put in some text in here, right? So we're going to put their tagline below the image, right? And their tagline is Italian comfort food. It's basically an H2 tag, right? I got it from H2, H2, H3, right? And if I wanted to style this, I could give it an idea, whatever, or I can style it however I want in a style sheet, right? So next I'm going to put a page footer in there. And we just want like a catchphrase, like what I put on the other one, we deliver anywhere, right? You just want to get that guy that lives out, you know, in Todd Road, way out past where the end of civilization is, and they say, I'm going to call them, they'll deliver anywhere, right? So just a tagline to get somebody. What are we doing here? We want conversions. Somebody's already on our site, and they're probably hungry. They're hungry enough to look at their site on a smartphone. We want to get them to make an order, right? The ultimate marketing scheme here. And then we're going to add 2 buttons. Buttons that help us navigate to the different pages. This one's going to navigate to, at this point on the home page, I'm just going to use buttons. You could use a navigation menu if you want. I use those on the other pages, but not on the home page. Why? It's just easier to get those buttons clicked when they're full width, right? So I am going to call this one menu, right? Or maybe our menu, because putting the word menu on a menu might be confusing. You know what I mean? Even though this isn't really a menu. So I'm just going to call it our menu. It's a little bit more inviting. And then I am going to create another button. And that button at this point will be called our locations. Okay? And to each of these buttons we can add an icon, just to make it a little bit more eye-catching or whatever. So for our menu, let's see, what do we want? We want a, how about a check mark, right? You order things, you check them off. I want this, I want that. Did I get a salad? Did I get dessert, right? And then for our locations, maybe a star. You know, we are here. It doesn't really matter, it's just whatever. Can we I'm sure that you can, but I believe that by default it'll use the sprite mechanism to show those icons. You know what I mean? So, but you, of course, could put images anywhere. This is just a button, right? In fact, we're at the point where we could say, what did we just do? So let's take a look. Let's inspect the code. There is no code. You have to click around a little bit to get the code, and there it is, right? And as you can see, what this code creates is basically a one-pager, right? A div that is one page of our entire mobile site. We could take this and replace our page 1 on our mobile page template now. Does that make sense? So let's do that. I'm going to literally copy this code right from this interface. I'm going to go back to my editor. I'm going to go back to our multi-page template, right? And you see where we have page with an ID of 1. I'm going to click in there, and using Dreamweaver, I'm going to use this little icon here that ensures that I select that element and no other element. Does that make sense?
Where did you get the, I mean, where did you, what did you do to make it pop up?
Where'd you grab the code from?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Inspect code. So right here it says inspect code. I click inspect code, and it's like magic.
Show it here one more time. Where'd you find inspect code?
So at the bottom of the Codica interface, right?
But you're saying that the element of button.
Oh, so you have to go back to, yeah, you're right. So that's the, maybe that's the, here.
They're not seeing it because they didn't click on the little buttons and click down to get the code to show what after you click on it. And then you click on the
Right. Here, so you go like that, and then I think you click. I have a hard time getting it to show, so I click that, and it seems to.
That's what he was having trouble with.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that, but it requires it.
Oh, my God. And you can click these things. If it clicks it off. I'm so helpful.
Thank you for the help. So, yeah, I don't know why that's the case, but you just have to go back. Maybe you don't. Maybe if somebody said if you wait long enough, it'll load. I'm kind of impatient, so I just started clicking, and that's what got it to load. And the only difference is what the white space delimiter is. Are you using Chrome?
Yes, I am.
You can't find this tab that says Inspect Code?
Should be right there, right?
Yeah, it should be right
It's
there.
not showing it. It's not
Let
showing
me
it.
refresh the page.
Have you created elements on a page?
Go back to
Yeah.
that.
Oh, that should have it, right?
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, now it's got code there for my whole site.
Does that, yeah. He clicked out of that box. Right there.
Well, that maybe it has.
Yeah, I'm not-
Focus, maybe it has to do with where my focus goes or something.
Yeah, I'm
I'm still creating the button.
right. So I'm still in the button element. I kind of have it selected, but I don't think it matters. It'll still show all the code, I think.
Once the code is up, how do you get rid of the code?
You just click it again. So you go like that, and then you click Inspect Code again. So, okay. So once again, I am going to take the code that was created for this page, right? And I'm going to copy that from this editor. I'm going to go back to the overall page that we have, the multi-page layout, right? And take just this page 1, right? Just through the bottom of page 1, right? The page goes on with page 2 and page 3, but I am going to just replace the entire div for page 1. If you're using Dreamweaver, an easier way to do that is to select it using this button here, and then you just get the page 1 content. Select it, and then you could just literally paste that code, save that, and now when we go back and look at see if we still have that open, this page, if I look at the first page now, doesn't do anything. So,
Didn't hit submit or anything?
it doesn't do anything because, well, why doesn't it do anything? Let's see. I've saved this. Let's load it again. Oh, it doesn't do anything because it did load it from the page. So, but it doesn't. There we go. All right. The page just needed to be reloaded. So we've started to get our content in there. Not all of it is wired up quite yet because these pages don't exist. We'll get to that in a minute. But we've started to create our own site from that core template mobile site.
So the multi-page template, can you make more than 3 pages?
You can. Yeah, you can make more or less. You just have to have a div with a data role of page to create a page. Right? A lot of what you're going to learn in using jQuery mobile, I'm going to get into it a little bit, and you can see it in this code, but as you use it more and more, you'll see that there are jQuery mobile specific attributes to elements that are used similar to the way Bootstrap has its own some of its own. It actually uses more classes than actual attributes, but these data attributes are critical. They are what drive the site. So we are defining this div as its role of a page, and then within that there's content of that page. Right? So I won't go into the specifics of each of these attributes at this point, but the learning point at this point is those are important. They make the page run, and they're specific to jQuery mobile. Right? Question?
Is that ID on that page all?
It is. Yeah, that's also what makes the page sort of activate. So in my example, I'm going to call this 1. We're going to just name our pages 1, 2, and 3. And what we're going to do then is say this goes to pound 2. And this is going to go, even though we haven't created those yet, this will go to 3. It should be pound 3. Because we're going to the element within this document that has an ID of 3. Right? So we'll get to activate those in a minute. But at this point, we've got our working page 1. We've got our banner. One other thing I want to do is add that, add this image. All right. So what's the best way to do that? I think what we could do. Let's go back here. We still have this open, right? You might not, but I do. And I am going to take an image element again and drag it under my tagline. Right? So it shows up right there. Right? And I'm going to go back to this image and just copy its location. And then go here and paste it. But this one I think is going to be called slide.png, right? Something like that? Well, it's not that. Oh, you could do that. Yeah, it's going to be a gigantic image because it's a full slide. Well, it'll scale it down, but it's going to be a lot of pixels. It's happy hour underscore slide dot png. Slider, thank you. All right. Yeah. You stay right there. I need you. You just got extra code. Okay, so now what do? I've already got the code. Now I added this because the customer called me up. They want to make sure the happy hour's on there. That's cool. I just inspect that code again and just grab that little piece. Right? I could grab the whole thing and repaste it, but you know, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to get, I think this is it right here. I'm just going to copy it and paste it right under my H3, which is right here. And I'm showing you this just to show you how iterative it is to use the designer, right? And if we save this and reload our page here, we've got our image. Right? Oh, that was quick. Yeah. Okay, so we have page 1 done. Does that make sense? You guys gonna go out and buy a copy of Dreamweaver just to build mobile sites? We haven't really used it at all yet. It's easier than Dreamweaver. Question? The style tag. Good question. I don't know why. Yeah, I see that. Yeah, I'm not sure why. No, I'm sure you don't need it. Maybe you do, but I don't think so. Well, let me get rid of it in my code. Let's try to break this. Okay, so that's page 1. Let's move on to page 2. Question? I'm sorry? Okay. And you could just put those names in there and not as a class? Wow. Okay. Interesting. How could that be? So so jQuery mobile overrides the style attribute? That doesn't seem to make sense.
I think so.
All right. Look. All right. I don't want to say it because I'm not sure that.
Oh, just try it.
Yeah. I'm not sure where the style is in there. Let's move on. Okay, the menu page, our menu, right? So we're going to start designing a new page. So let's go back here and just reload this page. And our designer is fresh, right? It's ready to go. What happened to that other page? It's gone, right? However, I have the code, and I could always, maybe I could paste it in there and it'll work. Not sure that it'll do that, but it might. Could always redesign it again. But I don't think there's any real save other than downloading it. We didn't even download, so one of the, like I said, one of the options is you could download it. You'll get a zip with 3 files, one called app.html, one called my.css, the other called my.js. You really don't need those using this methodology. You just need the code for the widgets of the page that you designed. Right? So page 2. Page 2 is going to have a header. And it's going to, the header, once you get the header in there, we're going to click on the text and call this page our menu. Right? And then we want to save as much real estate on this page as we can to show our stuff, you know, to show our products, our menu. But we do need a nav bar, right? So first we're going to put a nav bar here, and in that nav bar we're going to have one button for home and another button for our locations. I did new button. So I now have 2 buttons. I could close that button. You could see I have 2 items in this nav bar. Right? Once I get this code in, I'll wire them up with the right links. We did that with the buttons. We'll do it the same way. But at this point, it's an easy way to create the widgets. Right? And one of the coolest things is it's so easy that you can even create an accordion simply by dragging this collapsible element there, right? And then an accordion is made up of multiple sections, right? So our first section will be, you know, appetizers. And then we're going to add another section called, I don't know why it's jumping around like that, but this will be pizzas, right? And then, that's annoying. Then let's do pastas. And then let's add one more called desserts. How's that? And right, we need drinks. We're advertising happy hour, so we're going to go add one more section and say our special cocktails. How's that? Who's going to be able to resist that? So look, we've got an accordion. Right? We'll add the content in our page once we get there as paragraphs. Right? We don't need to make them H's. If they were H's, we could just drag an H element on there, but it's not necessary. And I don't think a footer is necessary. As I said, the more real estate we have to give ourselves the ability to talk about this stuff in these panels, the better off we are. They're on the page. Yeah, they're there. As you create them, they're being created on the page. Yeah, you could move. So so to answer that question, can you move, once you create content, like let's say we put a header here and say, we already have our menu, so let's say dishes. And let's say we don't like that there, we want to put it here, we could just drag it there. Right? We could even add it to an inner content, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe it's in there and it disappeared.
That collapsible thing is all one unit.
This thing is one unit. Right. I tried to drop this H2 element, but it didn't work.
So what is the appetizers and pizzas?
Those are just sections of the collapsible element, and we're gonna continue writing the HTML for those. Right now, we just have the structure. I believe you can reorder. You can't reorder them in here, but I think you could. When you select this, you could reorder them that way. right?
You get the button side by side, mine have been.
I called it a nav,
Oh.
not a button. So I dragged I'm going to do that on the next page, so I don't do it again on this page. Right? So I've got the code I want at this point. Well, at least the HTML that I want. Let's inspect it, and this time it seemed to pop up. This is my old code, right?
No, that's in there.
Oh, that's the new one. Yep. So, but it calls it page 1, right? Obviously. Yeah. So I'm going to select it all. Yeah, it is mine. And I am going to copy this structure, right? And I am going to go to my editor, and I'm going to find that page 2 structure. We're going to replace this, right? This page 2 from the template, which goes all the way down to here, right? The template is nice enough to give us some comments, right? And I'm going to paste it right there. And one of the things I'm going to do is give it a new name, right? Because it is 2, right? That's how we know how to navigate to it from the other page, right? And then here, this home is called what? And locations is going to be called 3. Exactly. So we have our navigation, we have our title, and we have our content. If we want to add content in each of these sections, just add them outside of the H3, and they'll be in the panel and not the clickable part of the panel header. Does that make sense? So let's do that. Let's add a UL. Menus are good, lists, right? And then let's add a appetizer of Caesar's salad, right? And then let's try create another one, appetizer, cheese sticks, right? And we could go over here, and where it says pizza, we could add a few. We don't have to do all this, as it'll get redundant. But let's call this small, yeah. Vegetarian, and the best known pizza in Brooklyn, which is the Lakes. Okay, and then we could go through here, I won't go through that, but let's, the Lakes. So let's upload this file and look at our page again over here, and when we reload it and we go to our menu page, well, it's the right, let's see. Oh, right, it's the wrong one. This is it. I think this is it. So we reload this and go to our menu page, and it doesn't work. Why is that? So are our links correct?
Well, you got to put it in there.
Yeah, so let's see. This page is ID of 2, and when we click here, it's supposed to go to 2. Let's try this again today. Maybe I need to, no, it uploads the whole thing. Yeah, but this page, the browser happens to point to the posted version. I think it does. Yeah, it does. And it's this one that we're working on. Let's see if we get a JavaScript error. No JavaScript error. Well, I think I'm uploading it to Mary's in class, am I right? You're right, it's getting there. How do I find, I'm used to the Mac where you could find what you're, yeah, so it's, yeah, it is Mary's in class. And when let me try to put this whole thing up. Nothing else in it. Okay. Let's look at what we're doing here. Did we miss a step? We have page. We go in here. There is a problem we could see already, right? We don't really close out page 1 effectively, right? Here's the closing div for just the footer element, but we never really close out that page. So that is a problem there. If I look at page 1, right, it's opening, but it's not closing. Why is that? This closes that. Yeah, we could validate this page. This closes. Yeah, so let's do this. I think we might just be missing a div. That usually means we're missing it. We have an extra div somewhere else, and we worry about that when we get to it. So, but I think we're just missing a div. So let's do that. I'm just throwing one in for the sake of brevity. And then we go here. We get some navigation. So, and we have our accordion. Where are the links? Oh, right. Thanks. And I put that as an unordered list. Yeah. You don't have to do that. In fact, a table works pretty well for a menu, because you get columns in an environment like that. But a list could be good also. Yeah. Obviously, you want to put prices or things like that. Maybe not. What you really want is, I know Irene's going to do this for her project. You want to be able to click on this and make your order, and then have that text put in. And then you and I are going to go sell this to Mary's. Okay, because they do have an online ordering system, but it runs in Flash. So good luck getting people to order with it. So we have page 2. Do we want to take a break now, or do we want to go page 3?
She's hungry. She needs a break.
Let's let the people at home decide. My browser doesn't have it stick to.
You're not like chained to
They're all great.
Yeah, they take break whenever they want. Shannon wants a break. Okay, so we will be back at 5 minutes after 7. Okay? So I am going to pause the recording. And everybody is coming back from, everybody's hungry because of this assignment. They're back from the refrigerator. People have gone out and gotten all sorts of great meals here. So, okay, let's move forward. We've got a lot of ground to cover in this project, guys. Actually, I think there was a question way back. Can I ask you a question about it, David? Can you have 2 on a page? Yes, to Calvin. You can create okay. All right, let's move forward. So I'm going to put this down for a minute. We're going to go back to our project page to take stock of where we are. So we're still in step one. We're halfway through this class. So you guys ready? We got to build our navigation. I called it a navigation page here. It's our location page, right? So we're going to go back to this tool and reload the page. So our designer is fresh. Our Codica designer is fresh. And for our locations page, we'll start off with a header. And you got to click in the text to get up the heading of the header. And let's call it our locations, right? And then we'll put a nav bar here, right? And did I just put a button or a nav bar? Oh, there we go. So we'll put a nav bar, and one button will be home. And it's so easy that we could just link it to the home page right there. Although we'll have to change that because our home page is different. It's not page one, or whatever, it's one. And then we'll add a second button that will represent a navigation to our menu. Right? And so we got our navigator, at least the start of it. And for our locations, let's see, add a header, add a nav bar, a footer, and 4 buttons for each of the 4 locations, with the address in the text, and a link using the tell protocol, right? So let's go back here. Add a footer. Adding a footer is simple. We're just going to add it right there. And what I'm going to use the footer for in this case is click on a location to call, right? And it's right down there. It's pretty prominent. It's on the page, right? So now we're going to add buttons for each location, right? So here is where we're going to need the locations from Mary's Pizza Shack, right? So let's go to locations, and it's probably best to do the local one. So let's go to Santa Rosa East, and we've got this up, right? So let's go over here and add a button. And the text of this button is going to be the actual address of that location, right? So I'm going to take, you could paste this or you could copy it. I'm not going to take the period in this case, and I am just going to put it as the text of that button, right? And I know that it's in Santa Rosa, CA. So while you can't see it all here, we could style it to be a smaller font so you can't see it. But at this point, it's real important that this be structured like that, because we're going to write a JavaScript program that reads that content and sends it to Google to do the geocoding, to find out what the longitude and latitude is for that location. So it's real important that we get it right, and it's real important that we don't put periods and things like that in, because it might mess up the API, right? How important is this? If you put the wrong address in here, all these people are going to go to the wrong location, you know? It doesn't need the zip code. As long as you put the CA, there's a Santa Rosa in Florida, but as long as you put the CA, there's none in Canada, so it should work, right? And our link will be a URL link, not a page link, so it's going to go to an external thing. And right here, you can see tip. Try tell number to make a click to call button, right? So it tells you that right there. And we're going to just put the telephone number in there, and for the purposes of this project, let's keep it simple, right? Do not call. So what we do have the telephone number there, and that is now a hot link. Does that make sense? So if you missed that, we'll do it again, right? So let's do at least 2 more. I don't know if we need to do all 4, but we'll do at least 2 more. So button, we just drag a button onto the page. We want to get a different location this time. Let's get the downtown location. We get the address. Like I said, I don't take the period. It might work, but I just being a little safe here. And that's going to be the text of our button. The street number, the street address, and then the city, and then the state. And that's all Google should need to do a geocode, right? And then the link will be a URL to a tel, and that's boom, 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 boom. All right, so I'm just putting a dummy number in there. You don't need hyphens, you don't need parentheses, you don't need any of that, right? So let's do one more office, just to make this a really boring class. So let's go, let's do Windsor, or which one? Roanoke Park. So as you can see, Mary really needs our help, because her use of the Google API for the map, she's not using her API key, or it's expired, so the map doesn't show up. So one of you guys could make a little bit of bucks here, shipping her this. Yeah, well, it won't after a while. It'll show up initially, and then it'll kind of go away. Here, you'll get this message. Google has disabled use of the Maps API for this application. This application being Mary's Pizza Hut or Shack.com. The key is not a valid API key. So you don't have to pay for the key. We're using the API without a key, but we're not as many people are. You know, we've only got 45 people in this class, so there's not as many. I'm sure it's after they get a certain amount of usage, they're going to get you're going to get this message. Yeah. So let's get Roanoke Park. My favorite city, Roanoke Park. We go back here and we type in the address. I'm going to take out that leading space that I grabbed by accident, and I'm going to put Roanoke Park, CA. Right? And of course, I could put a new tel in here. And I'm not going to look up the phone number, but it would be just as easy to go back here and say, get this phone number right here. Right? You could get it right off of there. But I'm not doing it because I don't want Marys to get all these calls. So, do we have everything we need at this point? There was, for this page, the map thingy. Very good, thank you. I knew there was another thingy. So let's do the map thingy, right? So as you can see, here's a map. There's a map widget that comes with part of jQuery Mobile Codica Page Development Interface. And I'm going to take this map and put it not in between my buttons, not in my nav bar, not in my header, but right between my nav bar, right, and my buttons, right? And I could give it, the width is a little long, let's give it a 260, how's that? Yeah, maybe it would. Let's do, nope, doesn't like that.
It's just making 95% of that.
Yeah, let's just do 65. Right. I'm sorry? So I moved it above the first button, right? And now what I'm going to do, watch what you can do. You can add markers just by using this section of the toolbar, right? So I'm going to go back here to my button, grab that address, copy it, and then go back to my map and make that my first marker, right? And then, obviously, we don't want the center of our map to be Madison, Wisconsin. We want the center of our map to be probably the downtown 4th Street, right? So let's take this address and copy it. Go back, right? We got that from the button text. Go back to the map. We're going to make that the center of the map, and we're going to add a new marker and make that the location of that marker, right? And if we make our zoom level a little lower, that's a little too low, but if we make it, let's say 12, we can see both West Santa Rosa and downtown Santa Rosa. We probably won't get to Roner Park. So let's try 11. And 11, I don't think it gets us there. Let's try 10, right? And that looks like it might get us to, yeah, because Mary's is, it's on golf course, not, looks like the expressway is right there, but we might get there. So let's try it. Let's go to here, grab this address, copy it, go back to our map, right? And add a new marker and make that location the marker. And there we go.
So the top location
is the center of the map. And so this map has a center here, a zoom level of 10, width and height, and then 3 markers. Right? So we have a header, a nav bar, a map, 3 buttons, and a footer. Very simple.
So what is the standard width of
Like I said, I think it's 288, but when I did that for this object, it you know, because of the margin or the padding here, so for whatever reason I just made that a little bit. I think 270 might be the optimum one. Yep. So 270 is a good width to make it fit nicely with the nav bar. Yeah.
You can't grab and drag. It's not what it is.
I don't think you could do that. You can move it, but you can't resize it. I don't know how to resize it. So, so now we've created our 3rd page. We go back to the code inspector, if we could see it, inspect code. If you can't see it, you got to build all this code by hand. Good luck. It's not that tough. You've done it. Yeah. So, but let's grab this. All our pages in this interface will look like page 1 because it doesn't know we have a multi-page.
Where's the image size? I'm just curious if you can replace it with percentage.
Yeah, I don't even see where it's here it is. Yes, I'm sure you could.
Those are attributes, not if you set a
You could set a style to it. Yeah.
How come you can't do percentage? Because
We just talked about that because we're using the width and height attribute, not the style attribute. So you could either add a style tag, or even better, you could take this out and style that image by giving it an ID and a size and all that. There's no magic here, right? Everything is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Everything you've learned is just taking a little extra step here to relearn a slightly different way of building a site. But all, you know, we're not using any Android stuff or iPhone, iOS, native things or anything like that. We're building an HTML5 site, but we're designing it with a tool that helps us build it specifically for mobile devices, but not to be compiled and all of that. So we're all using basic code. So we're going to take this code, and like I said, this is just HTML. You could do whatever you want. You know, it's just like Dreamweaver. You know, when you hit a button, it's going to put some stuff in, and you're going to want to go to code view and fix some of the things it does, right? Same technique. So you got it. So we go back to our editor, and now we're going to replace page 3, right? Which is called pop-up. There is no page 3 in the template, in the multi-page template. There's a page called pop-up. So I'm going to select the element that creates that page, which is essentially almost the rest of our document down through body, and I am going to paste that page that we created in Codica. I'm going to save that. The page obviously needs to be renamed to 3, just 3, lowercase actually. And our navs need to be adjusted to page 1 and 2, right? And we've got our map here. What's up with this map? Is it a map? It's a Google API image? It's an image. Very good. Yeah. So so the good news is we could easily create a nice simple map in just by dragging that little map to. But really what it does is it goes to Google, puts some markers down, takes the coordinates and the zoom that you gave it, and creates an image and gives you that image. That's basically what it does. And it keeps that image on Google's domain, right? But it gives us a link to it. Real simple.
So you can move it around.
Essentially, this is the Google API with the static map page, as opposed to just the API page, right? And if you wanted to override that, you could, but you can't do it just by dragging that map in there, unfortunately. So, but we've got it into our page now. Let's save it and put it, because we know that our reference here is going to that page. We have to reload it. Why do we have to reload it? Because it's all one document, right? And that won't get there unless we reload it. So if we go to our locations now, doesn't do anything.
You want to add an extra div tag at the bottom? Because they took it out.
Yeah, for some reason, the closing is like your tree leavers doing that.
So you think I need a div here
Yeah.
to close out all of page, outside of all these pages.
You did it for that one.
This closes that.
Maybe you do have one.
I don't think I have.
For your links, right?
I thought so. So how did I try to get there? It's from the home page, our locations. It's 3, right?
Yes.
And this page is called, this page is called 3. Let's see if I'm missing another.
Error on the markup and the bottom.
Yeah, I'm probably missing another div. I think what's happening is that interface is, yeah, you see it doesn't have that div.
Right, he's talking it all.
Yeah. I think it's just because my screen doesn't get there. So I am going to put another div in here. Might be in a quick and dirty way of doing it, but so far it's worked.
Yeah.
Let's go here, and it still doesn't work. How many divs is it going to take to? I don't think we're missing any. Let's look. If we go over here, that is 3.
Okay, so that do 2.
Yeah, we don't have 2. So we're missing 1 for 2. You're right.
Lucky guess. Lucky guess.
And it might be just for, well, we don't know if this will work. Let's see.
You got to upload it.
That I did. No, I don't think that did it. But if you go to 2, yeah, 2 is fine.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not. 2 starts here, right? So let's go over here. Yeah, 2 is messed up. Maybe it needs 2 divs. So this div closes.
Yeah, let's see that. The one above it.
So this has got to close the whole collapser, right? And then I need at least another one to close the content, and now I need one to close the page.
Right.
So I save this. I'm pretty sure this will do it. No? All right. I thought so. If I go here and I look at what is 2, so page 2 looks whole now, right? Page 1 looks whole. And page 3 looks whole. And if I save this, save it, and upload it, and everything works, and we load it. Yep, there we go. All right. So, and as we can see, this is an image, right? This navigation seems to work now, right? Cool.
So how do you add a page from the template? Or
You can just add it. So far I've replaced pages, but literally all you have to do is you could take the structure of a page and keep adding. What do you need of a page? You need the page, and then you need the content, right? Header. I think you need the content. I think that's a requirement.
But you just do it on that.
Yeah, I just do it on the Codica. It does it for us.
Their documentation is really good too.
Codica?
No, not
jQuery.
As far as understanding
Right.
what all of those things are. Once you start-
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of new attributes that you're going to find, and it's impossible for us to go through those today. And you don't need to buy one of those books to go through that. In fact, the documentation is obviously going to be more up to date. And a lot of the power is in the ability to have semantically marked up data elements like that. But obviously, we could go through some examples, but at this point, we don't go into too much detail with those. So, where are we? We've got a mobile site, and we got 3 pages, and we got the content we want, and it kind of works. It's not going to work on here, obviously, but if you try this on your smartphone, you're going to be able to call 333-3333, right? So we kind of got a working site, right? Let's go back to our project and see what it is that Jay wants us to do next. So Mary's going to say, "Great site. This, this looks like you built it for anybody. Other than our logo, it just looks too generic. We need it to be styled, right? So let's use Theme Roller to create our style. Okay. So if you think Codica is simple, Theme Roller is even simpler, right? When you go to the jQuery mobile site and you click on Themes, you get to Theme Roller for jQuery mobile, and you get to get rolling, and you should get an interface something like this, right? And you can see the widgets that we've already added to our page are somewhat represented here, right? So in terms of color, don't take your eye off the screen. In terms of color, we could literally say, Mary's is all about the Italian flag, so let's just do green and red, and we're done. Now that's a little too Italian, but and the links might not stand out, so let's make the links green also, right? And let's make a dark green button there. And we got something that looks like Festa Italia, right? So there might be, it looks kind of yellowish, this green, so let's fix that. Yeah, so let's select this. Let's do this. You want to use the darker green? How's that? That's got Joey Gallo written all over. I'm sorry. I'm not making politically incorrect jokes. All right. Let's, sorry about that, Kevin. All right. So what are we going to do now? We're going to download the theme. Right? We download the theme, and what does it say? It says, get your zip file, and it's going to have a style sheet. Put that style sheet in your document. It's going to say, put that style sheet in your document above or before the jQuery mobile default CSS. That, in this case, is not correct. Okay? We, by using the multi-page template, have a slightly different implementation of how the code fits together for this theme roller. So we want to put it in after the default CSS style sheet for Dreamweaver. And I put that on my page to let you know. So we're going to download the zip, invalid theme name. Let's call it Mary's. Right?
Did you just click the download zip file?
I just click this. That brings up this thing.
Yeah. Okay.
I put in a name and I download it. And it's going to create the zip file called jQuery mobile theme, right? So I've got to go to my desktop. Unfortunately, to get that, I don't need any of this. And where is probably my downloads folder, which is right here. Here's my zip file, right? I am going to extract it. rid of this redundant window. I could get rid of, so where did it extract it to? This is the extraction? I didn't see it. Oh, this one. All right. All right, so this I could blow away. It's the zip file. Windows deals with extracting a lot different than Mac. It creates these folders. So really all I want is this marys.css. Right? That is the minified version of the same file, the same style sheet. If I was going to save space, I would take that, and that is the right way to do it for deployment purposes, but for educational purposes, we might want to see the styles in a structured way that we could read it, so we're going to keep it. So I'm going to copy that file, and it's as easy as putting it in my folder, which is in examples, Mary's in class, and I could paste it right there, right? And then I could go back to my documents, and I just want to create the style sheet. And I want to do it, like I said, below this style sheet. I want my theme to override the default theme. And in earlier versions of jQuery Mobile, what that page was referring to in Theme Roller is you used to get two style sheets, one for page structure, one for page theme. So they wanted you to put it above the structure for some reason, but that I think is no longer the case. So I'm just literally copying that link statement just so I don't have to type it, and I'm just going to type in here Mary's, I think is what I called it, right? And then if I save that and upload that file, and I've got to remember to take my Mary's CSS, which has a capital. It will, so I'm going to change it to the way it should be. Don't update any of that, and I am going to swing it up to my server, and let's look at our page, and I thought I did. Let's try it again. So we put that. Why? But it is not finding that page, so let's, you know what I mean? It's not, oh, here it is. Okay, so that's fine. So let's see. There we go. So we've got, let's look at a page that has more elements, like the menu. Yeah, it didn't take all of the themes. It took some of them. That's what I'm saying. It didn't take all of it.
It's kind of like highlighted on the outside.
Yeah, it
should be red.
So let's see why not. So let's go bang. Oh, there we go. So I might have. Let's go back to Theme Builder. So if we look at these bars.
So you did header and footer bars, that's what you did. Yeah.
Well, I think I did. Here's the. I did the buttons, right?
But not the list.
Yeah, but I didn't really put any lists.
Yeah, I did put it in.
Well, yeah, but you popped them.
So let's try that. So let's take our basic button and put it in there. And then we want it on nav bar as well, but I bet you that'll pick it up in the nav bar. So let's, it's too bad you can't see your code, you know? You gotta re-download it. Let's change it up here to Mary's. Let's go through that process of archiving it again. It's going to be in, well, I think it's going to be in downloads and downloads, and I've got to drag it to my desktop, and then I could blow this away, and then I could archive this, extract that, and then I could go in here into my themes. Where is my CSS? Huh. Maybe that's the old one. Themes. There we go. So I want this. Copy that. Go back to its downloads. I want to be here, and I want to paste it here. Actually, it's below this away, so. Wait, that's not the right one. I want to be in here, here. Examples, Mary's in class. Blow that away. Paste the new one. Put that on the server. Relook at our page. And we got the buttons. A little too green, but pretty cool.
It was one of the other.
Where's the red? Let's go back to theme builder. Yeah, so I think it's for radio and checkboxes and off, but not. So. Yeah, but we didn't use a list item. We just used a list, an HTML list item, not the jQuery list item widget. Right? We could have used the list item widget, but we just didn't. So there's a lot more you could do with the roller. Let's move on. You know, but you get the point. Obviously, it's not as iterative as you could like, because you get the extract. I mean, you know, you got to extract the zips. The one thing you could do with the theme roller, I believe, is take an existing theme and re-upload it, and then change it and re-download it. Right? So it is somewhat iterative that way. You've got to import that theme, though, I think, the CSS. I don't know if you can do either the minify. Let's see what. Import default. Yeah, maybe it does both. I don't think you need to do the whole zip.
Oh, maybe you just paste it right in there. Maybe that's what that is.
Paste the contents of any uncompressed jQuery mobile. Oh, yeah, so you can just take those style sheets. That is pretty cool. Yeah. Let's try that. Yeah, so let's do this. Let's reload this page. So we get a new theme roller session, right? Let's go to our CSS style sheet and select all. Copy that. Let's go back to theme roller and try to import that. Pretty cool, right? And then let's go to like do this. So the active state for a button should probably be like red, so we get some contrast. You know what I mean? And maybe the inactive, the off state could be like green. Well, we're not going to see any of these. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to go through the process of extracting again, but you can iterate, right? You don't want to be totally bored. So our page, what's next? Now is when the fun starts. So at this point we have one thing you might want to do, that nav bar is kind of clunky, so I'm sure there's ways. Button, normal. Maybe not in the theme builder, but you'd have to style it independently to give it. You know, it seems out of place where everything else has rounded corners and that doesn't, so you might want to play with it. But we have a site that has information that is pretty mobile. I mean, it's not beautiful, but it's somewhat branded with their colors. And it's pretty functional at this point. Now we're going to add some additional behaviors using JavaScript. So we've built this entire site in a JavaScript class, but we haven't used any JavaScript yet. Right? There's JavaScript under the hood, and jQuery is a big part of pulling all this together, which is a topic in this class. But at this point, we've basically built a site, and now we're going to start putting the JavaScript on it. So let's go back to our project page. We've done this. Writing custom jQuery behaviors. Right? So the first thing to realize is that in jQuery, we usually use a statement with a pattern like this, a document-ready event in which to wrap our code to ensure that the page is fully present when we start doing things like adding events to elements. because they won't be added to the element if the element is not loaded on the page yet, right? We've learned that in JavaScript. We've learned that in jQuery. This is how we solve that in jQuery. Using jQuery mobile in the way we are with the multi-page template, we're not really we load a page once. And the navigation to a page is not a ready event, is not a document ready event. So what I point out here is that you want to use this pattern to add code, such as event handlers, for those instances when you want that code to run when a virtual page is opened, right, as opposed to a physical page. And then there are times, even with jQuery mobile, when you want to use the physical page load handle, the document ready. When the whole thing loads, in other words, when you're creating an event on a specific element in jQuery mobile, you're still going to add it to the ready event. Otherwise, it's going to add that event every time you navigate to that page, and you're going to have redundant events, and you get weird behavior, right? So for the purposes of our design, I'm going to add all of our navigation and events like that in the document ready event handler. However, the code that does the geocoding and figuring out the distance of each of the offices, I'm not going to run that code until we actually navigate to the locations page. So that will be in a code, in a pattern that looks like this. Except that instead of document, it's going to say #3. Does that make sense? Why are we doing this? Let me say it again. So remember, we have 3 virtual pages, but all within one document. So this type of event will fire when that whole document is loaded. And this type of event will, with the right code in here for the right page, will fire when a page is navigated to virtually using the jQuery virtual page model, right? So if you write it like this code will run regardless of what page you navigate to. But if you give it a specific page in here, that code will only run when that specific page is navigated to. It's all about the selector, right? Does that make sense? If document is a selector, all virtual pages will cause that to, all virtual page loads will call that to fire. So, so the best way to think about this is in jQuery mobile multi-page template, and even in the single-page template, usually jQuery by default will use AJAX to load each individual page. It's smart enough to know that even if you use the single-page template. So, so what you want to do, therefore, is when you want an event to fire when a specific virtual page is loaded, use this pattern. Otherwise, you use the basic pattern, right? So what we're going to do is use this pattern. We're going to say when the whole document loads physically, add an event to this element, which is the page 1 virtual page, and we add an event by binding the event to a function. Right? We haven't seen this before in jQuery in this class, I don't think, but this is a very common jQuery method that is a way of setting a specific event listener to a specific event handler. So we're setting the swipe left. What are we doing? If you think about the phone, page 2 is always going to be on the right. We speak English, we read from left to right. When you turn a page, you swipe right to get to the page on your right, which is your next page. You swipe left to go back a page, right? So on page 1, we want a handler for the swipe right, the swipe left, so that the page to the right pops up, right? And we want to, and when that happens, we want to run this method. This method, change page, is the jQuery programmatic way of making that virtual page change, right? It's pretty simple, right? So let's go to our document. We're going to create a new JavaScript document, right? And since I've just explained that code, I won't type it out. I'm just going to, if that's all right with you, just copy it. And we're going to put that in our new document, right? And we are going to save that document as, let's call it marys.js in our home folder, just to keep things simple, right? And then, of course, we could get rid of that, and in here we could just load that script by creating a redundant script tag. And it's probably best to put it after the other scripts are loaded, because it's going to use jQuery, and it needs to know, and jQuery mobile calls, and it needs to know what those are. So, and here our source is just going to be Marys. Yep, Marys. Right?
Yeah.
So let me just upload this and our index, which is that. And unfortunately, I can't test this other than a smartphone. So for those of you who can test it, you got to reload the page, and then when you get to the home page, try to swipe left, and it should materialize the second page. Yes.
So you didn't have to put that script tag at the bottom?
Yes, there is a reason for it, because why didn't I have to put it at the bottom? Because the script itself is smart enough to wait until the page loads. Does that make sense? That's why we did it this way. We could have left this out and just put it at the bottom, but this is a better way. This is a better way of doing it. Does that make sense? The document ready is the event that waits for the page elements to all be materialized, rendered. Swipe work? Swipe work on an iPhone? On an iPad? Swipe. You don't know what swipe is.
I know, but I thought you meant, you know, there's a specific button.
Nope. Swipe means taking your finger and moving it horizontally to the left or the right.
For a certain number of pixels.
For a certain number of pixels. And it could get tricky, because a lot of times scrolling diagonally will turn into a swing. And you're going to get calls from a customer. I keep getting, it changes the page on me, I don't know. So, and I'm not sure if there's a way to override. You might be able to adjust the tolerance of the angle, and maybe somebody at home like Noah or Melva can shed some more light on it. Is there a widget to feed info into a GPS program on the phone? For yes, there is. There's not a widget for that, but there is a way to do that. Are tablets considered mobile? It depends. So all we're doing at this point is creating a website. This website will look pretty good on a tablet. However, the website will not be visible unless you actually go to that website, or unless you redirect visitors from a page, from a default page like maryspizzashack.com to go to the mobile website under certain conditions. And we'll get to that, right? So to answer your question, Mark, it's up to what you consider to be mobile. You could have this page show for everything, even laptops if you want. Although swiping won't work and it won't look that great. You know, I mean, I'm sorry. Swipe works on Mac if you have a touch screen. Yeah. Oh, on the pad if you have a touch pad, right? Yeah. And I think you need like OS X 10.7 to get the. Maybe. I'm not sure it works on all versions of OS X. But you're right. Some laptops allow you to swipe the trackpad, even though you don't have a touch screen, and get a swipe action that way. That's good. And in that case, you could also have other swipe-like events like pinch. You know, pinch meaning zoom in, or what's the opposite of pinch? I guess pinch is zoom out. What's the opposite of pinch is expand or something. Spread your fingers. Anyway, let's, so again, I can't test this, but at least on this computer, has anyone tested this? Does the swipe work?
Yes, it works, it works.
Oh, swipe works. Very good. So we could then very easily kind of expand on this, right? We don't even have to look at our page. We could say, not only do we want one to swipe left to page 2, but we want to add essentially 3 more of these. We want a swipe of page 2 to the left to go where? 3, and a swipe right of page 2 to go to 1.
Oh, you didn't have all that earlier?
I just did the 1, and we got that to work, and now we're doing the others.
Swiping away.
Well, it's not set up yet. You can only swipe page 1 at this point. Now when we swipe page 3, do we want to be able to swipe it left? There is no page 4, so we only want to swipe right on page 3. And we want that to go back to 2. That would go in, yeah, we don't want to do that. So let's save this.
Okay, what's the website again? I did it originally. Instead of example.
So the original one was called Mary's. The one I'm working on now is called Mary's-in-class. Okay? So if you want to follow along with the one that's we're doing now, it's this one. So if I reload this, and imagine we're swiping. So Irene's going to check it now to make sure that our current version is working. Well, you have to reload the page. And I have to make sure that I put this JavaScript on the server. And you have to reload the page now. I just uploaded the file. Reload the page.
Reloading it.
Yeah, that's right. There it goes. Yeah. Okay. So, kind of like, what was that guy in Oliver Twist? Kind of like Fagin. I've teached all of you people now how to swipe. Has anybody read Dickens? No? Oliver Twist. Very good. So, that was a pretty bad pun. So, let's see what else we could do with jQuery mobile events. So if we go back to our project page, we already did this. Like I said, the Codeka map is a static image. Let's add a tap event that when you tap on it, it'll open up a live map in Google Maps. Okay? And the way to do that is very simple. First thing we got to do is name with an ID our map element, right? So we go back to our code, we go back to our HTML, we find that image that Google created, this one right here, and let's just give it an ID. ID equals SR map, Santa Rosa map, like that, right? And then we're going to go into our JavaScript code, and we're still in document ready, right? We want to we want to bind this event to that map when the page loads. We don't want to do it when the virtual page loads, because if we go back and forth to map, we're going to have 2 events, and we're going to open 2 maps. You know what I mean? We don't want to do that. So we're going to select our element that we want to add our event on, and it's SR map. Right? And we are going to bind the tap event, right, to a function which is an event handler, right? All event handlers have an E. We might not use it, but we could still pass it as an argument, even though we don't use it in the function handle in the event handler function. And then let's add our function code here, and then close out our bind method, and close out our statement with a semicolon. And here's where we're going to put the code that we want to happen when we tap on that map, right? And here we're just going to do basic, good old-fashioned JavaScript that we learned in class 1, I believe. We're going to go to the JavaScript window element, and I think it's called the open, and we just pass it a URL, right? And you could pass it Here's a good way you can get a URL to a Google Maps. You go to maps.google.com. You type in Santa Rosa, CA. You maybe zoom out just a little bit so we get Roner Park. You go over here and get the link and grab it. Right? You could grab the whole link or part of it, depending on how much of the definition of that map that you want. Right? So, does that make sense? This is just one way of doing it. There's simpler ways, but now I could go back to my code and put that URL right in there. And in fact, I don't even need all of that stuff. I just need to say, draw me a map and center it in Santa Rosa, California. And if I click on that, if I save that, save this, put it on my server, go to my page, reload it. Will mouse click fire the tap? I don't think so. Will somebody try it on their phone? Go to their iPad. All you have to do is reload it. You could try this on an iPod Touch. Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So the ID is literally the selector of the bind tag of the bind method, the jQuery selector, and we're binding to the tap event. I wonder if we could add another click event here and bind to that at the same time. So
Did you upload it?
I think I uploaded it. So I upload the JavaScript. Oh, I need to upload the index because I added the ID to the map and I didn't upload it. Okay, so if we go to the document itself, the map was created as an image, like I said. There's its tag, and I just added an ID equal SR map. You could make it a V click, and that way you could do both a click or. Thank you, Justin. You're right. Very good. So there's also an event called a V click, which is either a finger tap or a mouse click. So to use that, all we have to do is do V click event, right? And if we save that and put that up, and we reload this page, and we click on this, it'll open a new window with Google Maps pointed right at downtown Santa Rosa, right? It wasn't centered because I widened the page, right? So, so there was a question online, can we hook this up with directions? And the way to do that would be probably for something like using the API to Google Maps with JavaScript to do that. I could give you, we're not going to go through that in this tutorial right now, but just give you a pointer on that. You could go to the Google Maps JavaScript API, and I think if you look at the directions service, you'll learn how you can pass it to locations and it'll return a map or step-by-step directions to those. And you want to get this off of Google. You don't want to get this off of Apple's Map API. You'll get lost in the East River or something, right? So, but the directions result object will give you a step-by-step both a map and the route and the legs of the route and the steps of the route and all that. So lots of data for you to present. So you could have somebody, standing somewhere with a phone, click on a button, and bring up a map that shows them directions on how to walk to the nearest Marys from where they are currently. Right? Really cool stuff. Right? So,
Did you upload it?
I uploaded it. It works. I just tested it. All you got to do is tap on that map.
I don't have it now.
It doesn't require geolocation services.
Really? Then how come it says?
Yep. Does it work? It works. Okay. So, any questions about this? Any questions? Wow, swiping works on my laptop using Chrome by clicking and swiping the mouse. All right, let me check that out. I wasn't using Chrome for this project because in my Chrome I couldn't get the... Hey, that is pretty cool. So Chrome Desktop has a swipe of the mouse. You just drag and drop. Doesn't always work. Let's try it again. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, so it works on not all of them. Well, why would it work on some? Yeah, Windows 8 is a touch. There we go.
It's not Windows, it's window.
Window?
You only get one window.
It's pretty good. I like that. Yeah, so it kind of works. Sometimes you have to, with the mouse swipe, it doesn't always work. Because a lot of times you could be on an element and the page might not be getting the swipe. But anyway. There we go. All right. So, pretty cool. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Steve. Firefox also does that. Very good. Also works in Dreamweaver design. Yeah, because it's using WebKit. Our tablets concerned. Okay, so let's keep going. We're doing good, but we're coming to the home stretch. So now what we're going to do is create the code that when page 3 does a virtual page load, we are going to do a geolocation to ask the browser to ask the user to give us permission to get his position, permission for position, and then we are going to take that position, iterate through all those addresses, find out their position in the same nomenclature, latitude and longitude, and then do a triangulation kind of a function to see the distance between where the person is browsing and where the 3 Marys locations are. Right? Now this is using longitude and latitude geometry to figure out the distance. So it's as the crow flies distance. It's not driving or walking or taking a bus or taking the subways. It's not street view distance.
You're not going to actually do the arithmetic.
I am going to do the arithmetic. Yep. So I'm not going to do it myself. I got the code for it. But if you want the code, it's right here as part of our project. Calculate distance takes 2 latitude longitude pairs and calculates the distance. So this is code that Noah found, but it seems to work pretty good. If we go to our working example, right, and go back here and go to locations, it takes a minute for Google to go and crunch all that stuff, but eventually we get pretty good, you know, are we a 1/10 of a mile from downtown? It's probably a little longer, I think. Yeah, this could be the trunk, you know, of Sonic.net somewhere in downtown Santa Rosa, right? Yeah, and sometimes the browser information, this computer doesn't have a GPS system, so it's using the IP address to try to figure out the nearest approximation of a location, which, as you say, is probably downtown Santa Rosa.
I'm in Penbro.
Yeah.
I spend
Yeah, so when I do this at home, for some reason, I've got Comcast, no, I've got AT&T. It thinks I'm in San Francisco. Yeah, sometimes San Jose too, or Carpinteria, so I get all these weird. So anyway, but it should work a little bit better on smartphones that have a GPS. It should get you within 1/100,000th of a longitude. And then you can see the longitude and latitude change as you walk. It's a good thing. So anyway, as you walk the face of the earth. So let's build the code that does this. Okay, do we have time to do that? Maybe if we copy and paste it. So
You said whenever it calls to find your location, it gives you that pop-up every time?
I believe every
So
time.
you couldn't put it in the JavaScript loop where you were grabbing latitude and longitude and plotting as you ran? Because it's probably going to give a pop-up.
It might do it for without a page load.
Message, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
But then you could put
Can you build a real-time GPS system?
with the new server side installation on Firefox, you might be able to download
Yeah, I'm sure there are ways to do it with server-side programming. I'm not sure there are ways to do it directly.
an XFC bridge, by the network. It's simple, and it's more like code.
What?
Nothing. We're just talking about.
You want to do this for Domino's? Or?
And then see who will pay more.
We are. Think about how, so this is kind of cool for Mary's. Think about how cool this could be for Domino's, where we build a national or an international app, and we just present the 10 closest ones, and pretty cool. And
What's the pizza place down the road from here?
Mambo's.
Combos is good.
No, the cheapy one.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, that way.
I'm not sure. Okay, so let's get back to programming, and let's leave pizza for a second and get back to programming. So, so let's at least take a look at what we're doing. Okay. So again, let me reiterate this. We want.
Oh, I forgot. Her phone all of a sudden says, I forgot. I forgot.
Yeah, I don't know why that is.
I forgot.
Sounds like an Android thing.
Sounds like
So again, let's go through this code. So like I said, we're going to use a live method and the page init. We're not going to use bind. We're going to use live because that will fire when the virtual page navigation happens, right? And together with the page init event listener, right? And then in the function, the first thing we're going to do is run this, which is, what is Navigator?
No, it says with the browser.
Correct. So, sort of correct. So Navigator is a JavaScript object that comes by default when you're looking at a document in a browser. And remember we looked at window? Window is that browser's window. Navigator is the browser itself, sort of the browser executable, right? You don't need to know where that window is. The whole browser's in the same place, right? So Navigator captures information like geolocation, as well as things like what browser is this? You know, is it Netscape? Is it Firefox? Is it IE? Is it Opera? What version is it? What operating system is it running on? Things like that. What's the screen size? Not the inner screen size, which is in Windows, but the outer screen size, including the Chrome. You know, not the Google Chrome, but the windowing framework, right, of the hardware. Well, this stuff. If you could call it hardware. So Navigator has an event, has an object called geolocation, which has a method called getCurrentPosition, and this is the callback. This is the function that will run when you successfully get the current position using the geolocation object in the Navigator. Right? So we get the position, and we're going to run this function. When we get the position, after this runs, we get a variable that has position coordinates, latitude, position coordinates, longitude. So this is the position where the visitor is, where the device is. Unless, of course, it's a desktop, in which case it's where the network tells it where it is. But in GPS, this will tell us exactly where it is. So this will be the viewer's coordinates, right? And then over here, this is just an intermediate step. I just alert it out just to check it and see if it works. You could do that on yours to make sure your geolocation capability is working on your browser. If it's not, there's typically a browser setting that turns that on or off by default, right? So, however, what we really want to do is do more than just print it, alert it out onto the screen. We want to take that position and, like I say, figure out what the distance is between the 3 positions of Mary's locations, right? And that code is all within here. So let's go through that. Before we get that to work, though, think about it. We've got to iterate through each of those buttons. The buttons that contain the addresses for the locations. The buttons on our mobile page, right? On page 3. So this is the text for those buttons. This is the code for those buttons. All I'm demonstrating here, is that we're adding a class to each of them. We're adding this class so we can iterate through them easier. So we can, find them and iterate through them easier. I'm going to get to this code in a minute. In addition, while we're in the HTML, I'm telling you, go to the head of the document and load this. We saw this last week, right? This is the Google API, Maps API script. And we need this on the page to do geocoding, right? Which is what we're going to do in a minute. We're going to take this address, turn it in using longitude, using geocoding. We're going to turn it into a latitude and a longitude, right? So what we're saying here is add the class to each of these. Here I have 4 buttons. In my in-class example, as you know, I only created 3 buttons. And instead of using Windsor, I'm using Roner Park, but same concept, right? And then one other thing to notice is I have sensor set to true. And I'm not sure exactly what that does, but the reality is I am using geolocation, which is what it's referring to in the sensor. So I'm setting that to true.
That pop-up you get, it turns that thing on.
I think it turns it on to give,
feature on.
yeah. I think that's what it does. But it's really this that's going to turn it on anyway. We've already requested it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is what's going to really ultimately turn it on. So again, this doesn't change, right? This is all the code for the event handler getting to the page. The logic is all in the event handler itself. The function that is the event handler, which is this code right here. So we've already seen this. Get our position, the browser's position. Now we're going to just instantiate a new geocoder object. We do that here so we don't do it. This is going to be an iteration. How do I know this is an iteration? It's not a for loop. It's not a while loop. It's a jQuery each function. And what that's going to do is iterate through the DOM until it finds elements that do this match and run this function on each of them. So it works exactly like an iterator. It's a DOM element iterator. And it'll iterate as many elements are returned by the selector. If we left out the A, it's going to do this for every one of our buttons, everything that has a link, right? We don't want to do that. Right? That's why I gave them each, the ones that I want to iterate through, a class of branch. Does that make sense? So I'm just getting through the A's that have a class of branch, and for each one, I'm going to do this. Remember this? Why do we do this? Is it part? Well, it's for scoping, right? The meat of my logic is going to happen inside an internal function here, another event handler. So that event handler won't know what this is anymore. So every time I iterate, I've got to pass this to that event handler, and the proper way of doing it, the what's the word? The conventional way of doing that is to use this var that equal this. So now I have a handle, a variable called that, which refers to that, whatever this is in that outer function. And as you can see, I use that down here. I'm going to update my, this refers to the button, right? Because I'm going through each A with a branch, which is a button. And I'm going to get a bunch of data, get some stuff, and then I'm going to change the HTML of that button. Essentially, I'm going to change it from just the address to the address and the mileage from where we are, right? And you can see that, the office distance, right? So, so I instantiate the geocoder, I start up this iterator, I iterate through all the buttons, and, excuse me, for each button, I do a geocode. I say, take the address, right? Does that make sense? I mean, take the office address, right? So what am I doing here? I'm getting the text that's in the button, which is the address that we put in way back in Codica, right? When we created all those buttons, the actual address itself, that's in the text of the button. It's between the A tags. Get that and put it in a variable. That's just a string at this point. Then I say, when you run the geocoder, use that string as the address and run this function when the geocode is done, right? And the geocode will return something that we're referring to here as results. And for each request, we're doing a geocode. It's going to return a result.geometry.location object. And you could run a lat and a lng function on those to get to the actual, because location, the location object is, it's a Google specified object called lat long, LATLNG. And that's something that I can't really use. What I really want is the individual lat value and the individual long value, because that's what I've got to pass to the calculate distance function. So I get those by calling these methods on that object, right? So now I have a latitude and a longitude for the office. I have a latitude and a longitude for me, the browser, and I can figure out the office distance by doing this, by making a call to the calculate distance function that I wrote right here, passing it 4 arguments. The latitude and the longitude of where I am, the latitude and the longitude of where I want to go, and that'll give me a distance for each office. And then I put that distance and insert it into the HTML of the button, and all I do is put a hyphen and a MI stands for miles, right? And what I did I didn't do it in here, but I put a BR in here just so it formats a little differently, right? So does that make sense? There's a lot of code in there, but it should be relatively straightforward. And we could check it out by taking this code, and we could actually take all of it. So do you have to know how to calculate the distance given to coordinates on Earth? You know, I don't know how to do it. This is the type of thing where somebody who's better at math than me has posted this somewhere, and I'm just going to grab it. Well, we have to rewrite this. We didn't write this function. This is stolen JavaScript. But it seems to work. The bad news is if it doesn't work, you got to figure out how to fix it. Right? Or if you're better at math than I am, you could do the math yourself. And one thing you could do is you could go back here to this article, and this is more about animation. I thought I passed another one about geometry, but there's a lot you could learn about the use of mathematics in coordinate systems and determining things like geometric lengths of lines given 2 points and things like that. What we're doing here is another step beyond that. If you think about it, we're not just determining the length of a line, we're determining it given the latitude and the longitude and what a mile is. Right? If you were delivering this in Europe where they use kilometers, this formula would no longer work. Because this, I believe, is what equates it back to a mile. I might be wrong. You'd have to change at least that. If, what?
I think it's not right because as you go north, you're...
Yeah, it probably isn't perfect. You're right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, latitude and longitude converge as you get closer to the poles, right? So finding a Mary's in Singapore, the distances will be a lot different than they will be in Nome, Alaska, let's say, right? So,
I think that R is,
and that R might, yeah, I might figure it out. As I said,
I wondered if the Google APIs could do this for you.
the Google APIs could do a better job of this for you because they could actually give you road knowledge. Right. So I'm showing you this because it's getting a little math to noodle around with. It's a quick and easy way of doing this. I encourage you strongly to dive it more into Google Maps and its API. For applications like this, it's the type of thing that can give you a lot of value. You know, getting that extra directions feature will make Mary very happy. You know what I mean? I did not do it for tonight's class. We could revisit it for next week if you want to do that. I could make it part of next week's lecture. Okay. So, but for now, let's just take this code and get our example to work. And believe it or not, the calculate distance code has in itself a dependency on a function called tirad, which converts I think degrees to radians or something like that. Again, I'm good with arithmetic, but not with geometry, so it's beyond my thing. But let's go to our code, and what we're going to do is add all of this to a bind event on the page init of our page 3, right? So we saw the code for this already. Let's see if we can remember it. We're going to page 3. Is that what I said, live? Did I say bind? Oh, I meant live. I'm sorry. And this would be page init, I think. And then we would do function. We could do the I don't know if we need it. We could leave it in there. And I think that's the pattern we're looking for. Just to be sure, let's go back and it is here. Page init event. So we probably, I don't think we need the data, but let's just copy it. And then all this code that we have here, let's see. First we need to do this, right? And we do that in the event itself. Well, we're going over time here. And then let's save that. And then we're going to go back and get the rest of that code, right? That's not going to be part of the event. It's the functions that run as a result of the event, right? They're called by the event handler. And we just put these functions in here, and we get an error. That. I don't think it likes this. I think what I'm going to do here is do a BR, right? So it gets a new line and then puts the distance in lines. Right? I don't think it liked that. I don't know if it's the line or the spaces around the line. So we're going to upload our JavaScript, and we need to put our class equal, what did we call it? Branch. So think about this. Any type of branch business, it wouldn't take a lot to extend this to, you could build this mobile app for Bank of America, essentially, and it wouldn't be that difficult to modify it for their national needs. So let's put this up to the server, and the only other thing I need to do is my Google Maps API, right? So I can get that code right here. Go back to my head. I could load that pretty much anywhere. I don't like that new line, so I'm going to blow it. Maybe I do like it. Save that. Put that on the server. Go back to this page is my working page, right? Nope. Mary's in class. Okay. Reload it just in case. Go to our locations page. Our geolocation seems to be working. We wait a minute and I don't think it's doing it. Reload. No JavaScript errors. Oh, there we go. Doesn't like that last thing. Let's see what's up with that. Doesn't like that dash. So we're going to make it a miles. Let's do this. Miles. As the crow flies.
I don't think Mary would go for that.
Yes, it's not a good thing. People are gonna here. Let's. I don't think Mary's a win. Okay, so it's going out, and did I upload that? Probably not. So that's the. I think I need to upload this. Maybe not. Reload this. Go to locations. 10, 9, 8. Come on, I'm hungry. Where's the closest pizza place? It's not go?
What's your answer?
10, 9, 8. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, it should. So am I getting a... Oh, you know why? I'm looking at it in Chrome, which in this computer doesn't have geolocation turned on. And I couldn't figure out how to do it. If I look at that same page, this is our current page. If I look at that, I lost my thing. But if I look at that, in Firefox, I get the distances, right? Okay? So, why don't we do this? This will be Project 7. The project we did last week, the tutorial we did last week, I'm not going to assign specifically as a project. However, for your final project, you could tell me what you want to do with that page, that, the Don Redwood page. You could do some JavaScript project on top of that and hand that in as your final project. Or you could take another project that we worked on during the year and extend that, or you could start a whole new project. So the deliverables are, we've already got 6 in, right? This mobile site will be 7, and then the final project will be of your choice, and that'll be it. Then there's going to be a quiz, real simple quiz 5, and a final exam.
The grading was for 6, whatever project, 6 final project.
Yeah, so we'll have assigned 8 projects, including the final, and the top 6 grades will count towards your final grade. If you only hand in 6, that's what will be graded. If you hand in 7, the top 6 will be graded, and down the line, right?
It's not a matter of being graded.
No, go ahead. What's your question? Yeah. So the nice guy that I am, the lazy guy that I am, if I'm late grading a project, I can't grade you for being late for submitting it, can I? Because I don't know when you submitted it. So let me give you a hint. My guess is we probably will not get to it in the next day or so, but we probably will get to it by around Thursday, Friday.
Oh, man, you
So-
have to grade 5 first.
That said,
Well,
no, we're going to do 5 and 6 at a time because it's a lot easier to look at one person's 2 projects and go through the. We have a lot of people in this class, so remember we're only a couple of people that are trying to help you guys out. There's a lot to grade. So, but let me say one other thing. For any project, the purpose of this class is to learn, right? For any project, back to project 1. If you send me a note saying, I got it when I didn't get it back in September, I resubmitted one, I'd be glad to take another look at it and give you another grade. And I know you guys are itching to go back to those old projects and get extra credit.
30 hours.
3 hours. You get 3
So anyway, let me just check real quick to see if there's any question. You can get live updates. Live updates on the I don't think these are questions, but it looks like Noah posted some questions, and Shannon has a question. So the final exam will be open until the 17th, because I think we're going to meet on the 18th, if the 18th is a Tuesday. So let me say this. Our last meeting will be the same time, same place in finals week, and attendance is required, and the final will have been done by then. Well, attendance is required for me, and I'm not going to be here alone. So somebody has to show up, because I got to be here for 3 hours.
You shall be talking.
I really don't want to be alone in here. A week before Christmas, by myself. So, yeah, we can order pizza. We know how to order pizza there from Mary. So I would be glad if you guys would show up. I'd get a pizza. I'd probably get it from Mambo's, which is probably a lot better than Mary's. Or we could do a potluck. I know Irene will bring a ton of candy that she's got left over. So anyway, I've been talking for more than 3 hours now. Any questions before we? That was a good question, Shannon. And it's something I'll probably have to put out in an email because nobody wants to listen for 3.5 hours to get to that question. The final exam will be open for at least probably a week. I mean, how long? It's not going to be more than 20 questions. It's going to be very similar to the midterm. And none of that, like you guys, last semester, I actually got an email forwarded to me from a student saying, I've been talking to this other student, we're not sure what you mean by this question. And I'm okay with that to a certain degree, but that's all I have to say. Any other questions about this project? This project, what do you think? I think this is pretty cool stuff. Think of how easy it is to work with this, and yet how open it is. It's all HTML, JavaScript. Some of the JavaScript we learned way back in Project 1 we're still using, right? Even though we've got all these layers of technology, we're still using things like open a window and JavaScript and things like that. So, question? Okay. Any other questions? Let's do advanced stuff like comment, site scripting. Okay, that's a good request.
I would get that location from the Google map, that you paste it into.
Okay, that's a simple one. I just go to Google Maps, and you go to this link here, and you just paste the link. You can also get the iframe. You don't want to do that, you know. But to just do a tap to click, open a new window, you just get right. Thank you. So I am going to complete the class.
We're going to be
You too, Kevin.